thanks to all of the esteemed senators that have joined us this morning. I am the co-founder and president of Special Needs Network, a nonprofit agency that works on behalf of families in working class communities, particularly underserved communities in the Los Angeles County area. Special Needs Network provides services, training, resources, and advocacy on behalf of thousands of families who have children with autism. In addition to my role as president of Special Needs Network, I'm also a disability rights attorney. I served as a member on the Blue Ribbon Commission on Autism, and I'm the current chair of the South Los Angeles Regional Task Force for the Senate Select Committee on Autism, where I have the pleasure of working with the esteemed Senator Curran Price, who has left the room for a moment, but I have an opportunity to work with him and appreciate the leadership that he's taking with respect to this issue. And perhaps most importantly, I'm Marty's mom, a 12-year-old little boy who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2 and who has never had 1 hour of intervention, ABA therapy, paid by my family's health care plan. I'm here today to speak on behalf of my son and the thousands of families and consumers around the state who have children and or adults with autism and who, despite the mental health parity law, continue to struggle to access basic health care coverage for their children and loved ones. And Senator Steinberg introduced me earlier as Dr. Martin, but I'm actually an attorney, and as an attorney, I just can't resist just making a couple of rebuttal points to the statements that were made with respect to ABA therapy and funding sources. The regional center and the K-12 system that's mandated by federal law to provide services for kids with special needs are not mandated either by the Lanterman Act or IDEA to provide medical services for children. So when we talk about ABA therapy, and we've heard from the psychologist, the psychiatrist today, the psychiatrist that's a medical doctor, that this therapy is in fact a medical intervention, it is not appropriate to state that these services should be paid by regional center or school district because those entities are not charged to provide medical care for kids. And the Knox-Keene Act and the contract which provides for services for children cannot be considered without considering the mental health parity law in the state of California, which mandates coverage for the types of services we're talking about for children with autism. And to really understand the crux of this issue, it's really important to look at the history of insurance reform discussions that have occurred over the last several years. Beginning as early as 2005, the Blue Ribbon Commission, which I had the pleasure of serving with Senator Steinberg, recognized from its exhaustive work that health care coverage for behavioral and psychotherapeutic services for those with autism was limited, inconsistent, or excluded altogether by private health plans. The Blue Ribbon Commission report of 2007 noted that there was a lack of consensus about the medical necessity of services for individuals with autism with respect to behavior intervention, leaving families across the state with inadequate or the complete lack of services. The Commission recommended in 2007 that the state enact legislation, regulations, and other policies to ensure that all health plans and insurers treated autism as a neurological medical condition and provide the same coverage as afforded to other medical conditions, that all health plans provide a full range of services including behavioral therapy, and most importantly, that all health plans and insurers not use the diagnosis of autism as an exclusionary clause to withhold coverage, benefits, services, and interventions. Despite these findings and clear recommendations of the Blue Ribbon Commission, families continue to struggle as many health plans and insurers use every conceivable tactic to deny families coverage and to blatantly discriminate against families. Refusing to issue denials to force families to pay out of pocket for services, failing to reimburse them because they allegedly chose out-of-network providers. Fast forward to 2009. The Senate Select Committee is formed, and again, the health insurance coverage issue is identified as one of the key focus areas. The committee forms 11 regional task forces around the state, and unanimously these groups report that families continue to experience tremendous challenges in their efforts to obtain coverage for basic behavioral therapies and interventions, including speech and occupational therapy. These sentiments were echoed again during the 2010 hearings held by this committee. Now we sit here on July 13, 2011, 4 years after the report of the Blue Ribbon Commission, and the problems that families face are worse, not better. Carriers continue to discriminate and refuse to provide coverage by engaging in some of these actions: terminating services and denying services, claiming they're not medically necessary when we know that issue has been established; repeatedly changing the reasons for a denial once issued and once they lose an appeal; refusing to build or maintain provider networks; inconsistently treating appeals made to the Department of Insurance and the Department of Managed Health Care. And as it relates to the Department of Managed Health Care, imposing that providers of ABA services be licensed when there is no such legislation or statute in the state of California; authorizing very short treatment plans, then refusing to reauthorize treatment, claiming the lack of progress; requiring frequent and cumbersome reporting, unlike that which is required for other conditions, a clear evidence of disparate treatment; and refusing to implement decisions by the Independent Medical Review Board. And senators, these are but few of the problems. The list is longer and growing. And as that list grows, so does the frustration of parents who are quite simply buried by this current system, a system that is designed to require parents to take on the role of sophisticated advocates at best and at worst experienced insurance lawyers. Families who are already struggling to maintain the basics: employment, housing, transportation, who are paying thousands of dollars in insurance premiums, are being forced to draft extensive letters, hire advocates and attorneys, engage in protracted appeals, navigate a convoluted system involving two different regulatory agencies, DMHC and the California Department of Insurance, both of which have their own separate and contradictory approaches to how they handle appeals. And in the backdrop of this chaos, thousands of kids like my son Marty, like Kristen's son, and like the thousands of kids that I represent at Special Needs Network are going without much-needed interventions that we all know as professionals and lawmakers is critical to their development, progress, and growth. And as I end, I just want to leave you with this. My son Marty, who you've heard me make reference to, he didn't speak until he was 4 years old. Many professionals told my husband and I that he would never talk, and because of some of his very disruptive behaviors, that he would need institutional care and definitely the most restrictive educational setting possible. They said he couldn't possibly attend a public school. He couldn't spend time in the community. He couldn't make friends or enjoy the simple pleasures that all little boys dream of. Well, because I had the resources, the access, and most of all, an unequivocal resolve, Marty received 40 hours of behavioral therapy from age 2 until the time he entered school. Those services continued once he was in elementary school, and today, at 12 years old, he still receives ABA therapy. As a result of this early and intensive intervention, I stand here before you today proud to report that Marty is a middle school student at our neighborhood public school. He not only talks, but he gave part of his 5th grade graduation speech. He loves to play basketball. He loves his iPad. He listens to hip-hop music. He loves to go to the mall with his sister and her friends. And as a result of behavior intervention, ABA therapy, Marty has a life and a future. Respectfully, senators, each one of you has an opportunity to make sure that every child in the state of California has the same opportunities for a life and a future that Marty has been given. And real insurance reform is the only way to give our children and their families a prospect for a better and brighter tomorrow